Welcome to the Love Energetics podcast. This is a space for my girls who are on their self-love journey, becoming lucky in love, and who are making manifestation a lifestyle. Because over here, we are committed to living the life we daydream about. I'm your host, Maria Manifest. I am a transformation coach and a manifestation teacher. I am the founder of the Love Energetics Method, which is my signature formula that is rooted in unconditional self-love that creates successful long-term manifestation. After spending the majority of my life unlucky in love, I completely rewired my self-image and shifted my identity, which allowed me to transform my love life and manifest my soulmate. Now I'm helping other women do the same. If you're ready to attract your soulmate and sustain the extraordinary love that you know you deserve, then you're in the right place. It's time to break free from those toxic relationship patterns, dead-end dating cycles, and start creating a high self-image so that you can step into your most radiant magnetic energy. And with that, let's get into it. So today's episode is going to be an introductory episode, which I'm going to recommend that everybody start with when they begin listening to the Love Energetics podcast, because I'm going to be sharing more about my story, my transformation, and really more so like what Love Energetics is, because I think this is really necessary so that you guys know kind of the background of where I came from and the process that I went through, because that's just going to make you believe in the Love Energetics Method that much more. I think it's going to instill a lot of belief that you can implement this for yourself. I have done a massive transformation and I have sustained that transformation for years now. And so I've seen the lasting results of the transformation that I went through. And now I'm seeing it with my clients now that I am teaching this to others. Something that is really important in the manifestation process is believing that what you're doing is going to work. You have to believe in what you're doing. If there is a lack of belief, it's really not going to be nearly as effective. It's not impossible, but the more you believe in something and the more you understand why it works, the more effective it will be for you. And so that's what I hope to accomplish here. After this episode, you'll know more about my transformation and why Love Energetics is so powerful and truly, I believe, is the best process for not only cultivating self-love, but truly for transforming your love life and manifesting your soulmate. Definitely going to share more about my story than I think I've done, on Instagram and TikTok and other platforms. And the way that I would really break it down is I feel like there's two marks of change that are the pivotal points towards my transformation, and they both needed to happen in order for me to become the person I am today, to undergo the transformation that I did today, and just have the drive and willingness and commitment to really put my all into something that I didn't really know where it was leading at the time fully, and I didn't really know if it was going to work. It took, commitment and consistency every single day. Because of those two things, that's what got me to create the Love Energetics Method and got me to where I am today. I'd say the first piece of my story that led to my transformation is my dating history before my soulmate, before being with my soulmate, who I'm now engaged to. You guys have heard about him. His name is John. So if I say John, I'm talking about my soulmate, my fiance. I think part of the reason that my drive was so strong to manifest my soulmate back when I did in 2021 was because of the difficult relationships that I experienced in the past. And because I had so many challenges while dating and with previous relationships. So if I go back to previous relationships, when I was younger, I was in relationships more often than not. And the reason for that, looking back, is because it was a worthiness thing for me. Like if I was single, then I was not wanted, not attractive. Like I needed to kind of be with somebody to fill the void versus, filling that void with myself, which I'll explain later on in the episode is part of my Love Energetics Method and something that I healed within myself. In those relationships that I experienced, they were not great. There was cheating, there was wishy-washy behavior, lack of commitment, lack of emotional availability, and the last relationship that I was in before I decided to be single for 3 years and then ultimately manifested my soulmate. That previous relationship was physically and emotionally abusive. And that really was my first breaking point. Really, that first pillar of transformation for me was going through such an emotionally taxing relationship and just really experiencing the level of abuse that I did really changed me. At first, it changed me for the worst. That brings me to the second point of my transformation. After I got out of that relationship, this is something I definitely want to talk about more, especially for other women who have been in abusive relationships physically or emotionally. They both count and they are both very traumatic. The healing process is a little bit different, I think, than a traditional breakup. And I also think a lot of people don't really know how to navigate life after in a relationship like that. And so after I got out of that relationship, I kind of went down this road of, being really happy to be single. And I almost was like magnetic in this interesting way, in the sense of I did not want a relationship. I just wanted to spend time with my friends and just be single and like be by myself, because it felt like I had this huge weight lifted off of me, not having to walk on eggshells all the time and worry about every little thing that I did to not upset that person. It was very freeing. And I really was distant from a lot of my friends being in that relationship, because those types of relationship usually are very isolating. You can't really talk about, what you're going through. And especially if that person is very possessive, they don't like when you spend time with other people. At that time, I was very distant from people and I just really wanted to rebuild friendships. I didn't want a relationship. Right after I got out of that relationship, I just was focused on being single, and I seemed fine and well at first. After the first 3 months of being single, I started to decline a lot in just reverting back to other patterns that I struggled with, self-sabotaging, living out the lack of worthiness I felt. First year and a half after that relationship, I spent it going about my life not healed. So I was very emotionally unavailable. I was very closed off. I was very guarded, and I was doing a lot of self-sabotaging, numbing type of behavior, really just doing anything to not experience any type of emotion anymore. The more I numbed myself, the more I did things that were out of alignment, the worse I felt about myself and my identity. Based on the principles of manifestation, I had a low self-concept in order to attract an abusive relationship like that in, but I just continued to experience a lower and lower self-image, especially just being so unhealed after that relationship. I had no idea what manifestation was. I had no idea that the things that you thought or became your beliefs, I had no idea, which is crazy because I studied psychology in college. I had a degree in psychology and I didn't learn a single thing about how my thoughts and my beliefs created my reality, which is really honestly insane to think about. Why did I pay for that degree? Because I've learned way more after graduating college about how to change my life for the better on my own. So that's probably a story for another day. The second point of transformation was, it kind of started with the pandemic, which I know a lot of people, it did. The pandemic for a lot of people was a really big wake-up call to get them on track to the life that they were meant to live. And that was a big thing for me. I had just left a corporate job that was extremely toxic, which of course I would have attracted based on the identity and self-concept that I had at the time. And I had actually manifested without even realizing, because I didn't know what manifestation was, manifested a job that I really wanted, and COVID happened in the pandemic and I was working from home at this new job that I thought I was going to go into an office and have this fun environment for. So things were very different. When the pandemic started and the lockdown happened, I was living in South Boston with my roommate. She was my friend at the time, and her boyfriend, he was struggling with something medically that was not ideal to deal with during COVID. So we were kind of switching, being there essentially, especially because it was really hard to have all three of us work from home in this apartment, because when we were living there before the pandemic, it was totally fine because we all went into the office and weren't there the majority of the day. So us three all trying to work there in a 2-bedroom apartment with just like a small living room, kitchen, open space it was not going to happen. So we just started rotating up until our lease ended and then went our separate ways. When I was there, I spent like 2 months, I think, before I left and the lease ended. I spent 2 months living in this little South Boston apartment by myself, working from home with this new job where I didn't know anybody yet. So it was kind of hard to make connections virtually at the time. I mean, then it became like a normal thing after a while, but at the time, especially because the prior corporate job I was in, they were like so like office focused, like you need to be in the office, blah, blah, blah. So it was very different situation for me. I was in this apartment alone. I really couldn't see people, right? Because the restaurants were closed. I would try to take walks with a couple of my friends that also lived in Boston every now and then, but I was pretty lonely. Really just had to be with myself for the first time in a really long time. I really just spent the majority of that time being alone with myself and like finally having everything come to a head where I had to like deal with all of the issues in my life that I just kept sweeping under the rug. I was alone with my thoughts and I finally started to like pay attention to them for the first time since probably my whole life, honestly. It was also when I discovered TikTok, which as many of us probably discovered TikTok during the pandemic. And somehow I got on manifestation TikTok and I was like, what the heck is this? Like I had no idea what manifestation was. Once I started to learn a little bit through TikTok that people were like doing things to change their life, it was more like, I feel like the stuff that I was initially seeing was like more like little things, manifesting a guy to like you or something like that. And I was just like, oh wow, like people could do things to like change the outcome of their life. That's really interesting. So I started to learn about manifestation. And then, shortly after that, I moved back home to Connecticut into my parents' home, the childhood home I grew up in. Whole nother level of just old energy, old thoughts, old belief systems. I really wanted to stay in Boston and I tried to find a different roommate, another girl to live with, but I didn't really want to move home. And even though I needed to move home, which looking back now, that needed to happen. And I tried all these different things. I forced and, tried hard and just kept trying to find somebody to live with that was normal, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like I wanted it to be a normal girl that I would get along with. And it didn't feel right being so out of touch with my intuition between then and now. It just didn't feel right. And so ultimately I moved home. That was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I really reconnected with a lot of my friends back home. And ultimately that was also a really great thing because bringing you to my second point of the mark of change, the second point of no return, pivotal point in my life between living in Boston and then moving home, something I was doing a lot was running because the gyms were closed. I always had a strong relationship with exercise and working out. Kind of looking back too, that was also like a coping mechanism for me is, if I felt like shit about myself, I would just over exercise until I felt better. Like that was kind of my mentality for a while back then. So I was running a lot. I was also attempting to train for a half marathon. That wasn't even going to happen because of COVID. So I was running like 8 to 10 miles multiple times a week, like way more than I usually ever did. And I started getting more and more pain in my hip, got an MRI, and I had to get surgery on my hip. So it was actually really good. I moved home because I was not going to be able to drive, go up and down the stairs. Like I really needed help to do a lot of things. So I really needed to be home with my parents ultimately. Very fitting that I had that hip issue because learning about energy work, somatic work, spirituality stuff that I, talk and teach about now, you store a lot of your trauma in your hips. And so it just was kind of natural that it made so much sense that I had stored a lot of my emotional trauma there, and that was where I had an injury. That was my second point of transformation. And that's what really was the catapult to my spiritual awakening, where it was just like, all right, enough is enough, because I had to get this hip surgery, be on crutches, and not be able to go anywhere or do anything. And what was really scary for me was not being able to work out, because if I couldn't work out, how was I supposed to cope with things? I couldn't go out, I couldn't drink, I couldn't socialize, I couldn't talk to anybody. And then on top of it all, I could not exercise. So what was I supposed to do if I felt like shit about myself, or if I overate? I wouldn't be able to over exercise it away. And that was like also, and still is to this day, a great stress reliever for me. If I am having a stressful day, moving my body does wonders. And now I have a very healthy relationship with food and exercise, and I still do use it if I'm feeling stressed or anxious or just need to burn off some energy. Back then, it was very scary for me to not be able to do that. You know, it was probably going to be, I don't think I was able to run for like 4 or 5 months. I started slowly easing into running after that, and, you know, lifting even. I had to be really careful with that too. I didn't know what was going to happen. I felt like I was just going backwards in life. Good thing is that I got that surgery at a time when everything was basically closed, and it was the winter. Everything was closed. There was nothing to do at the time. So like that was the best time to really get that surgery, honestly. I was really scared that I was going to revert even further back from who I was. And I always had this like shadow self of like this old version of me that I just couldn't get my sparkle back. It felt so like distant from the best version I had been in the past that I was just like, who am I? Like, I don't even know what's happening. So that was like a really big spiritual awakening for me, because once I got that surgery, I literally just had to sit like on the couch and on the bed, and like I really couldn't do much. I didn't really work. I mean, I worked from home, but like I still had to lay down, so I like intermittently worked. That's really when I went headfirst into my spiritual awakening, and I learned everything that there is to know about manifestation. I started meditating because I couldn't exercise and I needed something. And so meditation was that outlet for me. I started learning about affirmations, read a bunch of books about manifestation, Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and all of that stuff. I started to dive really deep into everything that there is to know, really, because I was so fascinated by it, and I was so determined to really change my life. There was something that I could do to fix the way that my life was going. I was all ears for it, and I had nothing but time to dedicate towards a full-out transformation. And so that's what I did. I did my deep dive into transforming, which is now what the Love Energetics method is. And so essentially, I just like I've been doing ever since that January 2021, every year I make a vision board, and I write a letter to my future self, and I set, you know, my manifestation goals for the year. And so that year I wanted to cultivate self-love. I wanted to manifest my soulmate. Essentially, I underwent the Love Energetics process, and within those 6 months, so by June, I had met John. I had completely changed like who I was. It was crazy. Even my really good friends to this day, like they noticed a change in me. They noticed my energy was different. Energy is subconscious. You sense it whether you realize it or not, and people could sense I was changing. My dating life completely transformed before I met John. When I was living in Boston, before I underwent this major spiritual awakening, personal healing journey, and self-love transformation, before that, my dating life was absolutely horrible. Aside from getting out of that difficult relationship, those 3 years that I was single, or I guess it would be like 2.5, because like those 6 months, everything started to change. So those 2.5 years, I mean, they were just exactly what I teach people to heal. Repeating toxic patterns and just being in dead-end dating cycles. I was not attracting the type of partners I wanted. I was attracting the frequency I was vibrating at, which was low. So I was attracting very low quality people that I still knew at some level I didn't want, and I knew at some level I deserved better. So I was attracting a lot of people I wasn't interested in. I was attracting a lot of wishy-washy behavior, toxic behavior, emotionally unavailable people because I was emotionally unavailable myself. Like not great dates, like just like not good stuff. And that's what I really describe as an unfulfilling dating life. It was just unfulfilling on every possible level, and that was the best way to describe it. It was not fun. Until I made it fun. I had to do that. And I think that's really important in the Love Energetics method is you have to make the process of dating fun. If you are constantly hating it, looking at it for a means to an end, and just hoping that this next first date will be your last, you will never get the soulmate manifestation, because that's just not the way the energy works. And that's what I learned through the Love Energetics method. going back to that 6-month transformation, my love life drastically transformed and I started attracting higher quality dating prospects, people that were more on the level that I was becoming, right? Like I was becoming a higher frequency through all of the spiritual work, the healing work that I was doing. And I was also raising my self-image and raising my self-worth. So I was having higher levels of confidence and worthiness within myself. I actually was healing my relationship with food as well at the time. I was improving my appearance. And I was also building up my self-image and my self-confidence. So those two things combined, which is one of the parts of my love energetics formula, I was raising my frequency on all different levels. So of course I would be attracting higher quality people. And at the same time, I was also attracting higher quality experiences and what I would call a more fulfilling love life. Better follow-up from people, better dates. You know, I was never asked to split a check ever after that point. Before, yeah, but not during that time. A lot of better communication, a lot more consistent communication, no wishy-washy stuff. It was just a complete night and day shift from what I was experiencing before I did this work. My love life did a complete 180, as I say, it completely transformed. And it was honestly crazy to me because I was like, wow, like I had all the power within me all along to change my dating life. I went for so many years just thinking that this was out of my control and it was just the way life was, when ultimately I was able to change it for myself. So that was really cool. Ultimately, I had followed an intuitive impulse, a couple intuitive impulses that led me to John, which I can talk, definitely more in depth about. I followed a sequence of intuitive impulses, which is also something I teach in love energetics, to meet John, and ultimately we kind of began like our little summer romance. That was just manifesting my soulmate, and then there's a whole nother part, right, to actually dating them, getting into a relationship with them, and so on and so forth with all the different levels. And a huge wrench in my story, which ultimately was the best thing that could have ever happened, because that's the way manifestation works, right? It's always the best thing. It's always perfect what's happening to you, because it's all unfolding perfectly for a reason. It might not look like it in the moment, or you just don't know where it's leading yet. But I had met him and I already had plans to move, because I was living at home with my parents in Connecticut. I already had planned to move to San Diego with one of my friends from college. She was living in Boston too. So her and I already had plans to move to San Diego a couple months later. So I really didn't know where it was going to lead. That's part of the beauty of it. And that was part of the process and part of my love energetics method that made the distance actually be the best thing to happen to us and made our relationship that much more exciting and fulfilling and deep, and almost, I feel like, really fast-tracked things for us as well in a way. Ultimately, that whole process I went through, from that January spiritual awakening post hip surgery moment to meeting John my birthday weekend in June, and from there on out is my love energetics method. I didn't know at the time that I was going to teach this method to people. I really just created it for myself. All of those difficult relationships gave me such a strong desire and a strong will to really manifest a healthy relationship, a really deeply fulfilling one that was healthy yet passionate, and that would last. I really wanted to have that high quality, deeply fulfilling relationship. I didn't want to settle. I didn't want to have a boring relationship. All of those experiences that I went through made me want to live this big life and become the best version of myself. And I really learned that I wanted to go big in life, but also go big in my relationship. And so because of all of that, it created such a strong desire within me to manifest my dream relationship, that rom-com relationship at the end of the day. Because I love rom-coms. I'm a rom-com girly. Because of that strong desire, I just wanted to do this for myself. And so I created the love energetics method only after the fact. I did what I needed to do, and then just to improve my life. But then after still loving manifestation, I started applying it to other areas of my life. After I healed my love life, after I transformed and healed my love life, I started applying manifestation to other areas of my life. And so over the years, I started being like, HR was like the safe route for me. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. I realized that manifestation was my destiny. I was meant to teach it. I was meant to master it because I became so passionate about it. Anytime somebody would ask me about manifestation, about astrology, about anything that I was working on, because I was always working on it for myself, because once I saw how impactful changing myself was to improve my love life, I was like, oh my God, like I want to do everything possible to become the best version of myself. This feels so good. This feels so fulfilling. Like, what else can I do to improve my life and go after my dreams using manifestation? Because in the past, like, I had goals. I mean, I'm a Capricorn rising. I was always very driven and disciplined and ambitious, but I never achieved really most of the goals because of all of the self-sabotage and because of the identity and the low self-worth and the limiting beliefs. I never achieved those goals, but manifestation is the vessel that helped me achieve the goals and the aspirations for my life. So I became so obsessed with learning all there is to know and trial and error and figuring it out, deeply uncovering all there is to know about manifestation and creating the life you daydream about. So that's why I talk about making manifestation a lifestyle, because that's what I did. Ultimately, I think making it a lifestyle and becoming so passionate about it also helped me manifest more success in my relationship. When we moved in together, I manifested my proposal, and not in the way that you would think. Like, I never told him what I wanted, but I still manifested it. Moral of the story, I created the love energetics method later after reverse engineering my process that I went through from that January 2021 to that June 2021 process, because at the time I never expected to teach it, but over the years of becoming so passionate and so proficient and becoming really an expert at manifestation, I did that just all on my own, just by being so passionate about it. I started to realize that HR was no longer the path for me, and learning about that's another story for another day if you guys ever want to hear about that whole situation, because that was a very crazy situation as well. But I soon realized that I am meant to be a manifestation coach. I'm meant to teach people what I did to transform my life, because I'd see my friends, I'd see people I knew, I'd see so many people repeating toxic relationship patterns and being in a relationship and not being fulfilled in it, or they would break up and then they would attract the same type of person and repeat the same cycle. And, I saw so many people were just unfulfilled in love. And I was like, okay, people need to figure out what I figured out. And so I became more and more open to the idea of becoming a manifestation coach and teaching what I knew. And so when I was working my corporate job, I started doing that on the side, and that's how Maria Manifest came to be. That's why I started my Instagram and TikTok pages, and now my YouTube account, right? To start teaching everything that I learned and put into the Love Energetics method. And so here we are. I have now left my corporate job doing this full time, being a transformation coach, teaching my one-on-one clients, and, sharing the story, sharing my teachings, and helping others do what I did, because it's been years and I've been able to maintain it. I don't need to really do anything to maintain a healthy love life unless I do feel like there's a reflection coming up or a trigger. Every now and then, something comes up from my past or from his past, even if it's like a different area of my life, but it might be reflecting in my relationships. I work through that because I've made manifestation a lifestyle. I really changed who I was on an energetic level. I changed my state of being, which has allowed me to have manifested my soulmate and sustain that extraordinary love for years and be getting married to him this year. Really, to kind of tell you a little bit more of the overview of the Love Energetics method, that's how I was created. That's how it came to be. And essentially, it is a combination of different stages and processes of healing and self-love and dating, and then ultimately following your intuition, manifesting your soulmate. So it's like 4 to 5 different stages, modules, components, and they all need to be done in order to achieve the soulmate manifestation. This is not to just manifest any relationship. This is not to just get a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever. This is to manifest your soul-aligned partner, a person that complements you, and a person that you can be a partner with for life. Have that extraordinary love. This is not for the ordinary type of stuff, for lack of a better word. This is not for just the typical type of relationships you see. This is for relationship goal type of people, the people who really want to work on becoming the best version of themselves so that they can also attract the best ideal partner for them. At the end of the day, you do attract who you are, not what you want. Even though it is a longer process, there's a lot of self-growth and self-work that you need to do in order to get to that point. It is so much more fulfilling and so much more worth it than if you were to not do any of this work and you would just be ending up with somebody that is in alignment with who you are based on your programming from the way that you grew up when you were a kid. That's why do you think so many people stay in their hometown and they date somebody they went to high school with? No offense to any of those people that I went to high school with, but a lot of people do that. They just stay with the person that they knew from when they were a kid, and they buy a house in the town that they live in and just live their same life because they never did anything different and they never learned how to think differently and break free from the programming that they were taught growing up from their parents, from school, teachers, society, all of that stuff. So this is for the people who really want to go above and beyond, like I say in the beginning, right? Live the life that you daydream about and really become the higher version of yourself. Constantly be committed to that growth and evolution. I have a whole episode on making manifestation lifestyle and what that looks like. You have to be committed, to that lifestyle if you really want to attract the most ideal partner for you, attract the most fulfilling relationship that actually lasts, and go through life with them. Because at the end of the day, I don't think anybody really talks about this, but there are so many other things past just manifesting the person. You go through moving in together, getting engaged, getting married, buying a house, having kids. There's so many things that come into play with a partner. And if you really want your relationship to thrive through all of those phases, the good and the more challenging chapters, you need to be committed to this manifestation lifestyle. You really need to be consistent, at least in the relationship front, with the love energetics lifestyle. This is the introductory episode. This is the story. This is how everything came to be. And this is why Maria Manifest exists. This is why love energetics exists. And this is what I'm here to do and here to teach. I'm always going to be teaching about manifesting your soulmate and manifesting that extraordinary love that lasts, and also just everything related to self-love, because that was the key for a relationship perspective, but it's also the key to everything else in my life. If you want to do things the right, most fulfilling way and do them in alignment with your higher self and not really manifest from an ego place that ends up being unfulfilling, honestly, it doesn't feel as good as you think it's going to feel. That's why sometimes when people do manifest and they're not actually happy once they get the thing, it's because they manifested from their ego, not from their higher self. I'm going to end this before I keep rambling. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you got to know me a little bit better now. I want you to be able to trust what I have to say comes from a place of I've done it. I've been in your shoes, most likely, based on everything that I told you about, right? My story. I've done the processes that I'm teaching. I embody it today. I embodied it then and I embody it now. I've spent a lot of time really mastering this craft so that I can help you transform in the most effective, most fulfilling way possible. So I'm hoping that by sharing all of this with you, you are able to trust that and really believe in this process going forward. That's ultimately what's going to lead you to your greatest transformation. And that's what I want for you. That's episode 1 of the Love Energetics podcast. Feel free to DM me on Instagram or TikTok if you have any questions about this episode or have any questions about the Love Energetics method or my coaching packages. You can also email me at mariamanifest@gmail.com. Drop a question, a comment below wherever you're listening to this podcast. And I hope to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got a lot of value out of it. Happy manifesting.